Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening.
Welcome to another episode of Career Jumpstart. My name is 𝙤𝙧𝙧𝙚. I'm your host tonight, and I have my co-host Kelli Nottingham, and we're teaming up once again. And tonight's topic that we'll be discussing, it's called Trust Traps, Achieving Career Success Even When Trust is Broken. And I love that whole, that title, like Trust Traps. It's like this whole minefield in the office or in the workplace. And it's like, how do we successfully navigate through all of that and still, be able to win within our careers, be able to advance, be able to contribute, and, just have overall success, within our respective careers. And so we're going to talk about how do you navigate through all these trust traps. And we're also going to share with you the various trust traps that exist out there. And, towards the end, we're going to share with you several examples of how to successfully navigate through that. And we're also just going to, candidly share from our personal experiences some of the trust traps that we had to either go through or hopefully avoid. But in some cases, maybe we ended up going through it. And, and we're here today. So one other thing, Kelly, that I really want us to kind of touch on is perhaps if we can also look at how to identify potential trust traps so that way we can, like I said, avoid it altogether if possible. But if not, we're definitely going to share with you how to successfully, navigate through all of this. And so this is our 11th month, Kelly, in doing our Career Jumpstart series. Can you believe that? It's almost been a whole year.
That's unreal. That is unreal.
And so next month, Kelly, I know you and I have chatted a little bit about what we plan on doing. But for those that are viewing our show tonight, you definitely want to come back in August and check out our 1-year anniversary show. We have something special planned, and we're both looking forward to it. And just the fact that, man, we've been at this for a whole year is just, it blows my mind. I would have never guessed going online month to month, live, and chatting each month with one of my closest and best friends. And I think it's an awesome privilege, Kelly, for us to be able to still stay connected, even though I can't even tell you how long it's been since we've seen each other in real life. I think it's been probably about 14 months or so.
At least. Yeah, it may be actually pushing closer to like 16 now.
Wow. That's crazy. And I see our friend Jason Washington, one of our former colleagues, has tuned in. Thank you, Jason. Jason said, "Time flies when you're having fun." Absolutely, Jason. And you know what, my friend Jason, and Jason, I know you know Kelly and I, but you know what? I'm thinking maybe I reach out to you, Jason, and you can join us for our anniversary show. I know you have a HR recruiting background, and I think it'll be awesome to get you on here. So Jason, if you're still listening, if you could just type into the chat whether or not, and I'm putting you on the spot, my friend. I'm putting you on the spot. So if you would be open to joining us next month for our anniversary, Jay, please let us know either in the chat or message us later on, and we'll try to get you connected, my friend. And I know you're operating in this space as well. I know you started a podcast. Kelly started a podcast. I started this live stream. And Jason has said, wow, I will support. Okay, Jason, I'm putting it out here on the screen. Everybody that watches this will know that you're committing to joining us next month. So I'll make sure I reach out to you soon and get you up to speed on what we have planned. And thank you, my friend, for joining us tonight. Jason, as well as anyone else that's joining us, feel free to share this live stream. Actually, I'm asking you if you would share this live stream by clicking on the share button, whether you're joining via Facebook or joining via LinkedIn or YouTube. Go ahead and share this live stream with your network, so that way we can all learn how to avoid trust traps. And so, Kelly, let me ask you this quick question.
Okay.
Is it possible to overcome and succeed within your career even when trust traps exist in the workplace?
Yes.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Is it easy though?
Period. End of discussion. No, it is possible. It is absolutely possible. I think it takes a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about though today, that, you know, self-awareness, awareness of other people, trying to figure out how to navigate those relationships a little bit, and deal with it proactively so that hopefully the issues won't come up in the first place. I know we're going to share a few horror stories. Yay. Everybody loves horror stories of work fails, when times didn't work out the way we wanted to and what we learned from them. But absolutely, there are ways that we can manage trust levels, and a lot of it is perception based sometimes. So we'll be discussing quite a bit of that today.
Absolutely. And so to kind of get into this topic a little bit deeper, you know, the first thing that we're going to look at are what are trust traps. And to kind of illustrate this, I'm actually going to share with y'all a video clip from one of my very favorite, actually one of my all-time favorite movies. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Fun with Dick and Jane, but it's probably like in my top 3 favorite movies. And I know, Kelli, you hadn't seen the movie at all. And so this will give you a little glimpse of what the movie is about. It's not going to give you the whole thing. And I might have to paint the picture a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and show the clip and then I'll give some of the backstory if you don't get it. Okay, my friend?
Okay.
But you have to rent the movie, my friend. It's
okay.
One of my favorite ones. Okay, so we're going to actually show a clip from Fun with Dick and Jane. We're going to identify some of the trust traps as well as the impact of what happens when you know, there's a lack of trust in the workplace. So let me go ahead and cue it up.
Hello, I'm Dick Harper, and I'm here to see Jack McAllister.
Oh, well, that's him now. Sorry. He had to step out.
Dick! Damn glad to finally see you up here.
Hey, man.
Frank Bascombe, CFO.
Nice to meet you, Frank.
Nice to meet you.
Wow.
Listen, Dick. Jack's very sorry that he couldn't be here to congratulate you.
Oh.
Well, on becoming the new VP of Communication.
Wow. Holy, thank you.
But also, he wanted to invite you to his house for an orientation meeting on Monday morning.
What?
We want you to go on Money Life this afternoon and announce our quarterly projections.
Ooh.
You're the guy. You're the guy we have faith in. You can get our positive spin out there.
Right. Positive spin.
These are fickle times, Dick. We need to stick together as a team.
Well, you can count on me, sir. I mean, I can't tell you how happy I am.
Today we're talking with the new VP of Communications at Global, Dick Harper. How you doing, Dick?
Just terrific, Sam. Thank you for asking. And so is 𝙬𝙧𝙧𝙗𝙗, by the way.
Ah. Now, Dick, tell me, what is the shareholder to make of the fact that Jack McAllister, your CEO, has unloaded a considerable share of his stocks?
I think CEOs sell their stocks for many reasons, Sam. Both professional and personal.
Actually, over the past year, Jack McAllister has sold 80% of his holdings through shell companies. How do you explain that?
The reasons for doing something like that would be... Oh, losing you there. Hold on. Reasons for doing something like that would be, could be many. Both...
All right. Thank you for indulging us. Jason, he said this was the ultimate setup. Absolutely. This was the ultimate setup. Kelli, what was your reaction?
Oh, that's rough. I mean, it's not even throwing him under the bus. That's throwing him under like a caravan of buses. That's awful.
It is awful. You know what it reminded me of? Remember that time, and I know we always refer to this, that time we were working on that training project and we had to present in front of like 30 or 40 people. And I was the first person up and each of us were only supposed to present for like 20 minutes. And I ended up being up there for like 2.5 to 3 hours and only had like five sentences worth. And then they just kind of just dove in and just destroyed me. I felt just like, Dick Harper just now back then.
Yeah. Yeah. No prep, not knowing what you were walking into, just like throwing you into the lion's den and had no idea what to expect, no idea about the personalities in the room, no idea about expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
not even, I mean, oh, that's so rough. Like not even knowing that something horrible is going on.
Yep.
I mean, shadiness.
So you definitely have to watch the entire movie because he had a inkling that he was going to get promoted into an officer level position. So I don't want to give it all away, but anyway, he told his wife, and they had made all these elaborate plans, and they started, following through on those plans, and then that's when all this happened. But like, so obviously, I think the trust trap here is being set up. They weren't forthcoming. They didn't tell him or give him a full scope of what's really going on. And the cruel thing about it, he was on national TV as all this information is being shared with him. And so I couldn't even imagine. So let me ask you this.
No.
So looking at that clip and knowing, just from your own personal experience, what do you think the impact was on Dick once he kind of figured it out, what was going on?
Well, I mean, not having seen the movie, and I'm just can I do a small sidebar here?
Yep, absolutely.
When I told my husband that I had not seen this movie and you were going to show me a clip of this movie, but I had never seen it. He was like, "You've never seen that movie?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "I'm kind of not surprised because I haven't seen like Forrest Gump.
Okay.
I haven't seen Titanic. I haven't seen like a lot of movies that other people have seen, but yeah, anyway." But so this is something to add to my list. I think that for him, obviously he's not going to trust the leadership of his company. But I mean, the real difficulty, I think, of being put in this kind of situation is that it just destroyed his credibility personally with anybody that has seen him on television. And if he's probably going to lose his job now, and he's going to be trying to apply somewhere else, and it's going to be even harder because you don't want to be that person that's like, "Oh my God, my boss threw me under the bus and it was awful," in a job interview to explain what happened. And so he's going to have to do a lot of backpedaling to even try to explain the situation going forward without losing his own integrity. Absolutely. I'm assuming he has integrity. I don't know.
Yeah, Kelly, you definitely got to watch it. I will say it's on Netflix right now, so you can definitely catch it on there. But for you not to have ever seen the movie, you were pretty spot on in your assessment as far as how it plays out, because there's a clip right after. I'll just kind of give you just a quick heads up. So there's a in the movie itself, as soon as he gets back to the office, people are shredding documents, people are burning documents, stealing equipment from the place and everything. So, but he was unaware of any of this happening. So he was completely blindsided. And even though it's a comedy, it's funny, but stuff like that happens in real life more often than you think. And I'm pretty sure with the year that we had last year, and especially with companies going out of business, and others laying off a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of that happened last year as far as trust traps and overpromising and not delivering at all, or at least overpromising and then selling everybody out,
or not communicating that something big was going to happen, and so nobody had time to prepare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they were preparing for the wrong thing.
Yep. So going along this line of thinking, what are some other trust traps that we haven't already touched on that exist? And Kelly, you can definitely share your thoughts. I'll share mine. Also, if you're tuning in right now, go ahead and share your thoughts as well in the chat as far as what are some trust traps, that you've seen in the workplace, during your career, or those trust traps that you're just kind of know exist anyway. If you can think of some, go ahead and drop your comment into the chat and we'll definitely, acknowledge that. But Kelly, from your perspective, what are some trust traps that exist out there?
Well, I think one of the ones that we saw in the clip right there was, and I do think this happens a lot more than maybe we admit that it does, is hiding problems or just not admitting that a problem is actually a problem. I know I've worked for companies, multiple companies before that have been part of mergers and acquisitions. Okay. That we're all watching it like, I don't know that this is going to end well. What's happening? And leadership was like, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Don't worry. Everything's fine. We'll let you know if anything's going to change. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, just kidding. You're all laid off. Wow. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I've seen that. I think hiding problems, you know, I've had struggles with invisibility with leaders before, where they just sort of disappear and you don't see them. And so you just don't know what's happening, and nobody will give you any clear information. Drama. Yeah, drama. Yep. Drama. Joshua Toole, thank you for joining us, our friend. Josh put, managers letting you take the fall for a decision they made or failed to make. Absolutely. Yes. 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 That's crazy. Another one is gossiping. Mm-hmm. Just people flat out lying, bullying, shaming. I mean, there's like a whole line of things that we can name. And, you know, it's, if you're like I hate to use this word, but if you're like, in some instances, you might be the victim of some of these trust traps, or you might be a bystander in some of these cases, or hopefully you're not the perpetrator, but in some cases you might be. And so the thing is like, we can't deny that these things don't exist, because they absolutely do exist. Yeah. I guess the key thing here is being able to spot it and successfully address it or navigate it or avoid it altogether, if at all possible. And then it's like, say if you do spot it, and maybe you're a bystander. Let me ask you this. Maybe you're a bystander and you're just like, you know what, I don't even want to get involved. But you know the people that will be impacted by that, or, you know, maybe it's your team or the people that your peers and everything that might be impacted by that. Just from your perspective, and I hate to put you on the spot, Kelly, but, well, I do it all the time. But, I was going to say, yeah, you do. You love to do it. It's fine. So whenever that happens, do you feel like should we have a sense of obligation to do something about that? So that's a really challenging question to actually, I think, answer. And you don't have to answer it if you don't feel comfortable. I'm thinking as I'm processing this, because I've had some experiences with this sort of situation. Okay. Where I wasn't participating in a negative behavior that was going on in the workplace, a trust trap that was going on in the workplace, but I didn't know about it. And so I was complicit because I didn't know that it was happening, and I didn't speak up. So, I mean, you know me, Ray, for those of you who know me, I am like, you know, fight for the underdog. And I don't like to watch that kind of thing happen. Or I don't like bullying. Sure. I don't like favoritism. I don't like anything like that. And I have on multiple occasions been the sort of sacrificial lamb who has been the one to go forward when other people didn't feel safe to. Yeah. But I have to say, and this is where the difficulty comes in, I have the luxury of being able to do that. I have been in positions before where it was really risky to do that, because I was, you know, the sole breadwinner of my single person household. So it's like, if I say something and lose my job, I'm going to be eating ramen noodles for the next few months until I figure it out. So, you know, I think there has to be, we have to do what we can to protect and to help our coworkers and to help other people that we feel like are, you know, going through a difficult situation. But I think at the same time, we have to be somewhat forgiving of people that don't have the luxury of taking the risk of standing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they're in a situation where they are stuck between a rock and a hard place, and they just can't be that voice that's coming out and saying, no, this is not acceptable, it's not okay. It doesn't mean that they're not there. It doesn't mean that their support isn't there. And there may be ways that they can offer their support separately or differently.
Sure.
Than being the person to go up to leadership and knock on the door and be like, look here, buddy, I got a bone to pick with you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Which I've done more than once.
I remember. I want to shout out to our friend Pooja. Pooja commented a trust trap that she's experienced, or at least I'm putting words into her mouth. I'm assuming she's experienced. She says not being included in meetings that you were supposed to be included on. Thank you, Pooja.
Oh, that's a good one.
Jason, friend Jason Washington, he says, working in the corporate world, you find yourself questioning what happened to ethics and values. Definitely. I will share this really quickly. This is what I was going to share later on, but you know, you were mentioning about standing up for others. And so I've referred to this particular job that I'm thinking of right now. I've referred to it before during one of our live streams. And so it was the job that I don't know if you remember, Kelly, where I said people had been breaking into our cars while we were in the building, you know, doing our jobs. And like the place where I worked, you know, the leadership team, we had security for a little bit of time, you know, after like the first couple of burglaries. You know, they got security, but then, you know, just out of the blue, they did away with security. And then like that very next day, somebody broke into a slew of cars, and it was like midday. So this was like mid-morning. So I was pretty much done with it. So I went around it was at a school. I went around to every teacher, and I created a petition because I was just through. You know, I'm thankful that nothing ever happened to my car. But I'm just like, you know, it didn't make any sense. Obviously, I wasn't privy to the decision making, but just as somebody that's going through this and experiencing it, it just seemed like a no-brainer. You know, the school was not in one of the best areas of town. And you're just like, okay, so why would you take away security if you know that people have been breaking into vehicles like systematically? And so the day that last time that someone did that, I went around, had everybody sign a petition, or at least people that were willing to sign it. And then the boss of the whole place wasn't in the office that day, but obviously she found out what I had done. Very next day, she called me in the office, and you know, and so let me just kind of put a little backstory to it. So this particular person, she was a very large person. So she had to be at least 6'5" and probably like 270, 275 or what have you. So larger than your average size person. And she knew that she could use her size to intimidate folks. And she would do it all of the time. You know, whether she's going into somebody's room, like classroom or office, she would just stand at in the doorway with her hands on her hips, just blocking, you know, somebody's, you know, from exiting the room. And so that was one way that she would do it. Other times she would corner people like in the corner of the room and do the same thing and, you know, do whatever as far as talking to them or what have you. But like for me, she would, I don't know, I don't think she knew how to handle me because I was extremely quiet. And so I never really showed, you know, emotion. But when it got to that point, I was like done because I'm like, okay, now you're talking about our safety and security. How can I wholeheartedly do my job if I'm worried about, you know, somebody breaking into my vehicle? And so when she called me out on this after, you know, going around and getting everybody to sign the petition, you know, she was just like, so you talk about, you know, you mentioned about drama. So this lady craved drama. And anyway, I was like, she called me like materialistic and all this other stuff. And I was like, you can call me whatever you want. I said, at the end of the day, this is when I used to drive that Toyota Corolla. And so, you know, I had just paid off my car. That was the very first vehicle that I had ever bought, you know, with my own money. And it wasn't necessarily the car itself that meant a lot, but it was that journey that I had gone through. This was like the first big purchase that I had ever made in my life. And I was able to pay it off, from the beginning to the end. So it was like, if somebody had broken into that or stolen it, it wasn't as if they're stealing a vehicle. It's like, you stole a part of me, because it took me years to pay all that off. And it was just like the satisfaction, and I guess the level of pride of, hey, I'm an adult now, I can do this. She didn't get that. She didn't even care to hear that. She just saw me as a troublemaker. And I was like, it has nothing to do with that at all. Our safety is at risk, you know? And I was kind of blackballed after that. I eventually quit. Actually, that job, I walked off like right on the spot. I didn't give him any notice or anything like that, because it just escalated after that, and I never trusted her before then. There was other stuff, that I'm not going to share, but that had gone on, not just for me, for pretty much everyone. But to your point, and this is the reason why I brought it up, for a lot of us, we felt trapped because we didn't have, that extra income to support ourselves. So when I quit, I didn't have any job to run to or anything like that. It was just, I was done. Yeah, I had some savings, but I was done. It was just like, for me to thrive and to continue on, it was best for me to leave that situation altogether. And unfortunately, sometimes we just have to, quit, and just for our own sanity and well-being. But other times, it may not be to that extreme. And so what we really want to focus in on tonight is, if quitting is not an option for you, as far as quitting that particular job, at least for that moment, what is it that we can do? And that's what we're going to spend some time looking at and exploring. Okay. But before we get to that, Kelly, I know you have a couple of stories that you want to share with us as well. So when you think about, the various trust traps that we've already listed out, that our friends that have joined us have shared with us, as well as, what you and I have shared with one another, what kind of story comes to mind from your career in which you may have experienced a trust trap, or you've, seen one and you were able to successfully avoid it? If you can kind of share a little bit from your experience, that'd be fantastic.
So I'm trying to think, because the example that I had that I was going to talk about, I actually ended up leaving that organization as well.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yes, because people know when they're not a priority. I mean, you figure out when you're not a priority. But I have had situations where we would see some larger challenges with, like, not getting information that we needed to be able to make the decisions that we needed. And I think this is one of the challenges, especially when you start working for larger organizations, is that it's easy sometimes to get lost in the matrix of the organization. And as Pooja mentioned, like, not getting invited to meetings that you need to be invited to. And I know that situation has happened to me before, where I was getting left off of meeting invites, where it was easy at first to take it really personally, that they're intentionally trying to leave me out.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes that's true. Sometimes we make assumptions about people's intentions. And I know in situations that I have been in where I was part of a project that needed input from this other group, I was not getting invited to any of those meetings. And so my project was struggling because I was like working basically in a vacuum. I didn't know that all this other stuff was going on and that other people were working on similar stuff. I had to breathe really deeply a few times and really let go of my assumptions about why people were doing what they were doing. Especially if I had and this one particular person, I'm not gonna name names, but this one person that I was irritated with a lot.
Okay.
I felt like there was a lot of stepping on toes. I felt like there was a lot of like trying to cross over into my territory and like, this is my territory and how dare you come in here. And so I was projecting my anger and my frustration onto this other person.
Wow.
And I found out through a conversation with a mutual colleague, because I never talked to this other person. Like, I just like imagined in my mind what was going on, and I saw from what she was doing, like, this is what she's doing, and therefore she's trying to like come in the back door to do things to us and like, you know. Well, I found out through a conversation with a mutual colleague that this person actually loved me and wanted to work with me. And that what had happened in the past was actually nothing to do with her. And it was nothing to do with me. It was unclear expectations, which is another one that's a big trust trust issue, when you don't know what you're supposed to be working on and you don't know who all the players are in the project or in the game. The problem wasn't with us. It was with the people like 2 levels above us that were butting heads, and they were not making decisions that were trickling down to us. And so I was finding that I was reacting in a really negative way, because I was making assumptions about why this person was doing what she was doing, when that actually wasn't the case at all. She was being given a lot more leeway than I understood that she was supposed to have, if that makes sense. And so I was like, why is she stepping on my toes? And she didn't even know my toes were there.
Wow.
So
that is
and it wasn't anything to do, honestly, with either of us. It was lack of decision making, and like this territorial behavior happening at a much higher level in the organization that was kind of bleeding down, and causing a lot of problems and a lot of heartburn and frustration about it. You know, and that's not to say that I have worked with people who were intentionally vindictive. I love to think that karma is going to bite them in the
I understand.
But you know, basically you just have to distance yourself as much as you can. I mean, that's what I learned from that, and learned like what red flags to look for with those people. Because everybody runs up against them at some point or another.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I want to share this really quickly. Joshua Toole shared a comment. So I'm realizing one of these live streams, I'm probably gonna have to start wearing my glasses because I'm struggling.
I can read it.
Joshua, what'd you say?
I can read it if you want. I can read it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I got new good.
Are you on your laptop or
I'm on my phone?
And you can still read it? Wow.
That's how good my contacts are, right?
Okay, well, take it away, my friend.
Multifocal contact lenses. Who knew that they existed? Your level of passion about the disc service should dictate whether you act as an agent for change. In my humble opinion, says Joshua, I would not recommend standing up for issues that you are not passionate about. You will falter at the first sign of resistance and project as inauthentic and dispassionate. I think that's absolutely true.
Wow. Yeah. That's profound. Yeah, I agree with that. And the reason why I'm saying that, because like I'm one of these people, I know myself. And I have family members that joke it's because I'm a Gemini. They say this. Are you getting feedback at all when I speak?
No.
Okay.
Are you hearing something? Are you hearing?
Yeah, like a
Those
locust.
are the crickets outside my house.
Are you serious? Oh wow. Okay.
I live in a swamp. They're either the crickets or the frogs. We have lots of frogs outside right now.
It was pretty clear. That's awesome. So like, I tend to be one of those people that I choose my battles. Okay. And it might be, you know, some people say it's because you're a Gemini, you don't really get involved in everything, or you hold stuff in, or it could be because I'm an introvert. I don't know. But there are those, what I would consider, I couldn't tell you exactly what they are, just depends on what it is. But I do have some of those hot button issues that even though 99.9% of the time I'm very laid back, calm, but there are certain issues that just kind of set me off. And then there's some issues that may not set me off, but it's the repetitive nature of the same thing always happening time and time again, and people are getting burned over that. I have a very short tolerance for that, because I could see maybe the first time something happens, well, then you should probably address it. Somebody needs to address it, okay? But if it's happening like 2, 3, or maybe 4 or 5 times, you know, that's way too much. Kind of going back to that same example with the vehicles being broken in. It's just like, if I see like there's inaction happening, nothing's going on whatsoever, and it just seems like, you know, whatever the situation is, it's being, you know, it's running rampant, something has to be done, you know? And for me, it might be because, you know, I was a social worker for 10 years. Like, I have like this passion for people. Like, I hate to see people getting mistreated.
Oh yeah.
Especially when folks are defenseless. And I'm not saying that I'm some type of crusader, because I'm a small fry compared to some of these people. But it's just like, after you get to a certain point, like, at least for me, I don't really care who you are. I don't care, you know, anything about you at that point. It's just like, whatever that issue is, it has to be addressed. And unfortunately, the times that I've kind of gotten to that level, it's like, yeah, like, Ray, where did this come from? And it scares people. It scares me too, because I'm just like, it's not me, but it's, you know, the situation has just gotten out of hand, you know? And I guess for me, my hot button issue, if I had to like put a label on it, specifically to the workplace, kind of going back, I think you may have touched on this a little bit, but it's like when you get to a certain level within the organization, so some of those higher ups in the organization, and they're making whatever decisions or what have you, or they're not doing anything in certain instances, but people are being impacted negatively over that. That burns me up, because I'm like, okay, you are in a position of power. I know for a fact that whether it's myself or other people have mentioned to you, hey, this is what's going on, and it appears as if nothing is being done to address it. That tends to set me off, especially if I know people are being negatively impacted by the inaction that might be occurring at that moment. And so I will definitely speak up about those situations. Like I said, I tend not to say that much of anything, because I'm just like, hey, I'm just here to do my job. You know, I could care less about all this other drama, but there's certain things that come across your way, and it's just like, yeah, that's not acceptable. And I've gotten into the point in life where maybe not when I was kind of like that when I first started out too. Like, I was quick to quit jobs when I first started out. I'm like, I don't need this job. You know, I could go out and do this, or I can make more money doing that. That was always my attitude. But then once I started getting those responsibilities of owning a home and having a family, like, well, yeah, I can't quit. So I'm gonna have to sit here and address whatever it is that's going on at that moment. So that kind of draws me into the conversation that we're having this evening. So say if we find ourselves in a position where we can't just like run away or escape or just quit, how do we effectively navigate through situations like this? And the reason why, let me just kind of take a step back. The reason why we're talking about this topic tonight, because the times, like for me, I've had a couple of instances in which situations like we're discussing as far as trust traps, it has set me behind in my career at times. Like I think I posted earlier this week a time in which that had happened. And the reason why, like I told you before, like I mentioned, it's like I got trapped. It's like I can't quit, at least at that moment. But then you get to the point where it's like you don't know what to do, because you feel like if you say something or if you do something, it'll cost you your job. Okay. And it's like, I got all these responsibilities now. I can't just up and quit like I used to. But then you get so battered and damaged in the process. You're like, man, I don't even know if anybody out here wants me. Kind of like you mentioned about the movie that we shared earlier. You know, who's going to want me? I'm damaged goods at this point. And it's, you know, that might be far from the truth, but it's just like, it's almost like going through like an abusive relationship where you've been battered consistently week in and week out. And it's like, how do you break through that negativity, so that way you can see that you still have the same capabilities that you had that got you that job, that may gotten you that raise, but it's like all this negative energy has entered into the equation to beat you down as well as others that might be involved. And it's like, how do you break through? So I'm kind of asking it to you, but I'm also making like a rhetorical statement, because we're about to dive into some of the things that we can definitely put into play to help us all to successfully navigate these situations. So that way we really don't get left behind in our careers. And that's really the key thing here. But before we do that, and I know, Kelli, I can see it on your tongue and you want to share, but I want to share one more comment that our friend Josh has posted. And Kelli, if you could be so kind to read that one as well.
I get so protective of the people in my charge, sometimes to a fault. I have learned to step back and contemplate the legitimacy of the charges and accusations against my people before going on the defensive.
Wow.
And Joshua, I am the same way. I am that bullying and unfairness.
Yeah.
Those are two of my big button pushing issues. Animal abuse is another one. Yep. So never kick an animal around me, because I'm short, but I'm small, but I will do some damage. Yeah, even like with Ray, the situation you were talking about earlier, where you were just getting grilled for like 2 hours. I so vividly remember that day, and I remember watching like our two different defense mechanisms, I guess, coming out, which I think is really interesting. And it ties in with this conversation really closely, because we have to understand what pushes our buttons and how we react when our buttons are pushed. And I saw you in that situation, and you were standing up there, and just one person after another just tearing up what we had been working on collectively together, without even giving you a chance to say anything about it. And I saw like the shutter go down over your face, where it's just like really blank. Like you went to like Xanadu. I don't know. Like you were really just mentally gone out of that situation.
Yep.
I remember sitting in my chair. Literally squeezing the armrests of this chair. Like, do not stand up. Do not stand up. Do not say anything. Sit down.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to stand up and get in front of you. And shield you from what was happening. And it sounds like Joshua does the same thing. It's like, I want to jump right in and like fix it. I want to like rescue whatever's happening in the situation. And sometimes it's warranted, and sometimes it's not warranted. So I think that's one of the biggest things to me about understanding how to navigate trust traps, is understanding like what really aggravates you, what really kind of sets you off, and then understanding how you react to it. And for me personally, I had to understand like in my body how I reacted to it, because I'm a react and then think person. And so my adrenaline hits and I jump before I've even thought through like what's happening in the situation, And so for me with trust, and I think this is what's really important as we start to understand how to work through some of this, is like understand that, especially when you feel threatened in some way, or you see something that gets those all of those chemicals in your body and your brain pumping, your first reaction may not be the most useful one to use. And a lot of times it honestly, it may not be at all the most useful one to ever use. But as soon as we start to feel that happen in our bodies, if you know where that happens in your body, if you tense up your hands, if you feel like your jaw get really tight, if you start to like your hearing starts to go fuzzy,
Okay.
Whatever it may be that causes you to want to react, you feel those reactions happening in your body, that's the time to kind of like, whoop, whoop, whoop.
Wow.
Let's figure out what's happening before we just immediately jump into the situation and potentially make it worse, because we may not be seeing the whole picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good point. Jason,
Mhm.
thank you both, Jason and Joshua. Y'all are making this conversation go so well. I appreciate both of y'all. Jason has said, what bothers me, especially being an HR professional, is when the HR team, it says you're a part of, or the HR team that you're a part of listens to employee relation issues, but will go back and spread those issues with others outside of the department.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah. It's like HR.
Confidentiality is a thing, y'all.
Yep, absolutely. And he
Yes.
says no credibility
Right.
at that point. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, HR folks are almost like pastors or ministers,
Yes.
where you're held at
Yeah.
a higher standard because you have so much information that can destroy people's lives, you know, or like physicians, you know so much about other people that you can literally destroy them. Josh, he said, don't get on Kelly's fiery side. Absolutely.
I know how to punch. And I used to play rugby. So
there
yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
That is so
Yeah,
awesome.
no, and the sad thing is, to Jason's point, the sad thing is that reputation of lack of credibility and lack of trust, that has a ripple effect so much further beyond what we may think happens. I mean, there's a reason why people call HR human remains. You know what I mean? Because people have had bad experiences with HR, and that they carry that with them, that lack of trust. It's like, and we've talked about this before, I think, like that whole red car syndrome, I think is what they call it, where you buy a red car and then everywhere you look, you see red cars. It's like people, when they automatically bias toward what they're expecting to see. You're going to find what you're looking for. So if you see in your past that your leadership wasn't trustworthy, or I was in a similar situation one time with this person who reminds me of this other person I couldn't trust.
Yeah.
And you pick up those baggage suitcases and you carry them with you right into that next situation. And so your behavior as a response to that lack of trust can actually be sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, where you're like, I don't trust this person.
No,
because they remind me of my ex-boyfriend, who was a jerk, who's also named Lucas or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't trust him. And so we begin to behave in ways that match that belief. And then all of a sudden he's over there like, what did I do?
Yeah, what did I do?
I don't understand what's going on, but something's off with her. And then he's like avoiding you, and then he tells other people like, oh, what's her problem? And they're like, yeah, she's kind of weird. And then all of a sudden you have a reputation for, you're the drama person in the room.
That is so true. So we don't have too much time left, so we can kind of go through a couple of things on our list, if that's okay with you, Kelly, as far as how can we go about overcoming and succeeding within our space, even in the presence of trust traps. So, for me, just really quickly, one of the first things that come to mind is, and at least for you, you as an individual, being straightforward and honest. And I would say at all times, no matter what's going on, you have to be honest and straight up with folks. Yeah. So like everybody in the world could be lying to you. They could be lying about you. But the thing is if you have let's say a reputation of being honest, it's going to be hard for a lot of people to believe whatever that rumor or whatever this other person might be saying at that time. That holds a lot of weight, know, and a lot of people will say, I just can't see Ray doing this, or I just can't believe Kelly would do something like that. That doesn't sound like Kelly to me, that goes a long way. And so I would say, I think somebody mentioned about being proactive earlier, just by being straight up and honest from the beginning, or just even, all the time, that holds a lot of weight. And people notice that. Yeah. People will notice that. And so that's one thing, that we can put into play to ensure that we can successfully go through it. Now, it's not going to make it easy, but if you are naturally inclined to tell the truth, always tell the truth. It will, it'll set you free, basically.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, either regarding that or maybe some other things that we haven't mentioned at all? And our friend Cassandra Lacey, she says, honestly, or honesty, authenticity is top of her list. I appreciate that, Cassandra. Yeah, you have to be honest, and you have to be authentic.
Yeah,
you know?
people can smell an authenticity a
Absolutely.
mile away.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, to build on your point and Cassandra's point both, is be honest, be transparent when something doesn't go right.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're running behind schedule or something, don't fudge that and pretend like everything's hunky-dory, because if and when it is found out, then the next time you try to say, no, everything's on schedule, they're gonna be like, yeah, but is it really on schedule? So, you know, being open if things are going wrong, and saying, I have a plan to address this, this is what I'm gonna do, and then follow up, so people know that they can depend on you.
Absolutely. So as you were sharing that, so it has everything to do with what we're talking about, but it happened when I was younger, and and it's kind of comical. Hopefully I'm not going to take forever. So I remember telling you before that when I was in college, I think I was in college then, I had a summer job where I was a camp counselor. Do you remember me telling you that once before? And so that same job,
I can't see you doing that. That's
it's one of the best jobs. It was the most fun that I think I've ever had professional. Well, I don't even consider that a professional job, but it was one of the most fun jobs I've ever had. So anyway, the camp that I worked at, the director of the camp had bought like these go-karts, outdoor go-karts, you know, for our campers and everything. So I think he bought a total of 4 go-karts. So it was a couple of, you know, grand for him to buy all 4 of these. So as soon as he dropped them off, and then I think he was returning the vehicle or the truck that he had rented to, you know, to bring the go-karts back to the camp. As soon as he dropped them off, myself plus other counselors, we all took them, and we started riding around the entire campground. So much so, and all the little kids, like we all abandoned our campers, like we just let these little kids just go do whatever they want. But they were like they couldn't believe us because they had never seen this side of any of us. But it was as if we were the kids. And so we all jumped on the go-karts, and we had driven around for at least an hour. We ended up breaking all 4 brand new go-karts. Like we ran into tree stumps, but we couldn't see it. And we were like all over the place. I ended up getting burned on my arm. I still have that burn till this day. So long story short, and this was like a Christian camp. And so, and the guy that was the director, he was a pastor. So as soon as he got back, I was like, you know what? I don't care what any of these other people are going to do. I got to let this guy know, because I felt horrible, because I was like, in my mind, I'm like, he just bought these things and we destroyed every last one of them. So as soon as he got back, he didn't know what happened, at least yet. So I went to his office and I was like, look, hey, this is what happened. I was one of the people that was on the go-karts. I was responsible for breaking one of them. You can take my entire pay from the summer to pay for it. And I felt guilty. I felt horrible. And I was just like, I had to get it off my chest because I couldn't keep it to myself because it was eating me up. And so I was just like, I told him everything, at least from what I had done. And he was like, well, I really appreciate you telling me this. You know, I'm upset because these are brand new go-karts, but you're the only person that has stepped up and taken ownership of it. And he said, no, you don't have to I'm not going to take your pay or anything like that. And, or what have you, but no one else had spoken up or said anything. But for me, whether he had taken my pay or not, I really didn't care at that point. It was just like the relief of getting that burden off of my mind, because I'm like, I started seeing it from an adult's perspective. That's just craziness what we did. And then to not say anything or to try to cover it up, yeah, I could not live with myself. And so, to what Cassandra just put, being honest and being authentic, for me personally, I can't hold that. That's just hard for me. And so once I did it, I felt better about
Mhm.
just getting it off my chest. But it strengthened my relationship with our director. Like, he had a ton of respect for me after that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, like, so much so that he asked for me to come back the following year. And I went back the following year. But it was just, so that was really probably like my first time ever professionally that I had the opportunity. I could have lied, or I could,
Yeah.
I didn't have to say anything, but
Yeah.
I chose not to, because I would not have
It
been
was
able
little
to do it
Timmy's
myself.
fault.
Yeah.
Sure, you little Timmy.
Plus, those little kids probably would have ratted us out anyway.
Right, exactly.
But I know one of the things that you were going to mention, admit your shortcomings.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
another thing that we can do to ensure that we can successfully navigate through our situations, because none of us are perfect at all.
Right.
And being able
Yeah.
to be forthcoming and admit, hey, yes, I have some shortcomings, or I'm not good at certain things, and just being transparent with folks.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, in my experience, what I've seen as well is that, there will be opportunities to visibly show trust in other people, and that trust in its own way is sort of contagious. If
Okay.
you publicly give credit to say, when somebody says, oh wow, Kelli, you did such a great job on this, and you say, actually Ray was the one that worked on this and he did a wonderful job, thank you, Ray, for working on this. That kind of publicly giving credit, or delegating something to somebody and then stepping back and letting them own it instead of like trying to micromanage it, that level of trust becomes contagious to the people who are trustworthy people.
Wow.
But there are, and I think this is one thing that, as we, close down this conversation a little bit, is that there are people in the world. I mean, you actually were saying, like, I saw it as an adult would, and I was like, I don't know that it was actually an adult thing, Ray. I think it was just a responsible human being thing.
Okay.
There are people that are complete adults that would have not said a thing and would have tried to pass blame on somebody else. And
Sure.
unfortunately, the workplace is full of those people, and I think we've all had to work with them, or unfortunately for them sometimes. And if any of you find yourself in that situation, there are ways to get the work done. You hate having to document everything.
Yeah.
But sometimes it gets to that point where you have to kind of separate yourself out from having a great working relationship to, I work with this person and I do what I have to do to get my work done. And it sounds, I don't know, it sounds kind of cutthroat to think about it that way. But at the end of the day, when you align, when we align ourselves with someone who is not a trustworthy person, that is also contagious. And when people, other people see us, allowing behavior to happen, or they see us, smiling and being super friendly with somebody that everybody knows that we hate, or somebody that is a bully at work, and we're like chummy, like, with that person,
Sure.
and not, just kind of like, I'm doing what I need to do with that person, but I'm keeping them at a distance.
Okay.
When we don't keep that distance, that untrustworthiness is it fills in the gaps in people's perceptions of who we are. And that just continues to erode the trust further. So, I think that what this all comes down to really is, you have to do at the end of the day what your integrity tells you that you have to do. And if that means standing up with a coworker that's being bullied, then you need to do it. If it means, I don't have the luxury of being able to do that, but I'm going to go to this person afterwards and say, I just want you to know I support you. If you want to talk to me about what you're dealing with, I'll help in whatever way I can. Whatever that looks like. To me, that's really, living within your own integrity is the only way to really be able to feel okay at the end of the day with, you know, even working with people that you may not trust.
Sure,
So.
absolutely. You know, that's a yeah, that's a great way to look at it, and also a very effective way to deal with it, as well as navigate a situation like that. So I really appreciate that comment, Kelly. One other thing I'm going to share with you, or share before we conclude, and before I do that, I see somebody dropped a comment. They said, true leaders build you up and encourage you, absolutely, and kindly correct you when necessary, not the latter. It's all about integrity. Absolutely. It's all about integrity. And then whomever posted that, thank you so much. On our end, it says LinkedIn users.
Anonymous LinkedIn user.
I'm not calling you out by name. So
secret LinkedIn user.
You can always put your name into the chat so I'll know who said that. But thank you for your comment. Also, Cassandra has mentioned, she said, the truth is the kindest thing. I love this. Oh, the truth is the kindest thing we can give folks in the end. By
What a wonderful quote.
Beecher Stowe. That is so awesome. And that is so true. One other thing that I really want to share. So, you know, Kelly, you mentioned about having integrity and really, you know, that's what we really need. We need to be able to rely upon that, because others are seeing our, you know, seeing how we roll, who we hang out with, or who we might be chummy with. And it looks like Kelly Shoemaker posted that comment. So thank you, Kelly. We appreciate you joining us. One other thing, because it can be really traumatic going through all of this, you know, and I know we're just casually talking about the entire nature of the conversation, or at least about this issue. But if it's hard to navigate through that, one of the things that I personally have found, I guess, a comforting as well as an effective way to kind of go through those situations, it's really, I guess, what I would call finding allies or network of people that you can rely upon, that will care about you and love you no matter what you might do or say or what you might be going through. And that's what you need. So if you don't have that, I would strongly recommend that you create that. And it could be a mix of people that you might work with, or people that just know you outside of work, or what have you. And that goes a long way. You know, I used to have at that, you know, when I was going through some of those things, I had my parents, you know, they were always in my corner. They've probably been the primary folks in my life that I've been able to call upon, or just, you know, very non-judgmental. It was just like, I just wanted to vent, or I just wanted to just share, hey, this is what's on my heart, or what have you. And they've always been there. And so that's been effective for me. I know other folks have, you know, colleagues that they can just confide in, and that won't judge them, or like Jason said, they won't put it out there, you know, in the streets as far as your business. And those are the type of people that you want to cultivate relationships with. Obviously, you know, some folks build networks so that way they can build up their career and move up. Nothing wrong with that at all. But this type of network that I'm speaking of tonight, it's really those folks that are in your corner, and that you can just vent, you can just bounce off ideas, or you can just cry, or you can just yell, and they will not hold that against you. That's who you need in your corner. And so last thing, I think it's almost like, I was watching this movie the other day. It was a boxing movie. So you think about a boxing match. It's brutal, you know, and it's just, you know, you're getting pounded, or you might be pounding the other person, or what have you. All these people are screaming and yelling because they want you to either lose, or, you know, they want the other person to lose. But then everybody at the end of each round, you go to your corner, and guess what? You got your manager, you got your trainer, you got the people there that are in your corner. Even though you might be bloody and you might be brutalized, they are there to nurture, to care for you, to kind of build you up, to give you that strength and that energy to get back into the game, or to get back into the match and continue to compete. Yeah. That's the type of network you need, you know? And so as you're kind of navigating through all of this, and that's just for your own well-being as well as your sanity. So,
and if all else fails and you're struggling with even finding that person, find your employee assistance program.
Absolutely.
And go talk to a counselor.
That is so
Because
true.
I know I've had to do it when I've been in really, really horrible work situations before. It's like, I need to talk to somebody that doesn't even know the situation just so I can talk this through
Absolutely.
and make sense of it. So get
So
a pro
Kelli,
in the corner too, and the company will pay for it. So
yeah,
bye-bye.
hey. So you know what? So we're over our normal time as far as us doing our live stream. So I'm honestly thinking that this might be a topic that we'll have to have like a part 2 at some point, because we could probably talk for a whole nother hour, you know, regarding this topic. But I want to thank you so much, my friend, for coming along for the ride and contributing in such a dynamic way this evening, and really kind of sharing you know, some of your experiences, as well as, you know, your profound insight regarding tonight's topic. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Ray.
Thank you to everyone that joined us tonight. I'm just going to shout everybody out that I can remember. So we had Kelli Shoemaker. Thank you, Kelli. And I'm just talking about the folks that commented. There may have been others that have, you know, joined and just watched.
Silent
We really
workers.
appreciate you. So we had Kelli Shoemaker, we had Cassandra Lacey, we had our good friend Jason Washington. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
We also had Pooja. Thank you, Pooja. We had Joshua Toole. Thank you, Joshua. And I think that's all the folks that at least that had contributed to our conversation. So once again, coming up in August, we've been at this thing for 1 year. Okay. And as far as doing live streams, and we're going to have our anniversary show next month. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We'll be posting about that. And we're going to have some fun with this. I think we were able to recruit Jason Washington to join us. So we might have a couple of guests, and we're just going to have a good time. We're going to look at our past year and and doing these live streams. So thank y'all so much. My good friends, Suthmitha, she joined us. She said, great conversation. Somebody else said, miss you both. It looks like Kelli Shoemaker and our good friend Pooja said, yay. So yeah, stay tuned for next month. Been at this for 1 year, and we have some ideas that we want to start putting into place going forward. So we plan on doing things bigger and better. And I just can't believe we've been at this for so long. So it's been great, my friend. And thank y'all so much for joining us. And we'll see y'all next month. If you happen to be here in Texas, Southeast Texas, please stay dry. It's been raining like crazy over the last month. And just take care of yourselves. All right. Y'all have a good evening. Have a fantastic weekend, and stay safe. You take care, everyone, and take care, Kelli.
Bye, everybody.